Hey there, everybody. Today is part 2 of our procedural flower series in CINEMA4D, and I think it's a good topic, because we're kind of in the in winter. I'm bundled up. It's cold, and I have my handy floating microphone with me, and trying out the invisible background for this one. So we'll see how that works out. So if you watched the last video, basically what we talked about was using the pre-made floral assets from the French monkey, and that's kind of where we're going to pick up from today. And so let me pull up the website in case you didn't watch last time. So you'll go to his Gumroad, and you'll see a bunch of assets, and they're all really great. So if you're looking for something else, this is a good place to look too. But what we're looking for is the Everyday Asset Pack, and we'll click on that. And inside of it, you'll see this Everyday Project Library. So we're going to go there, and it'll pull up this page of a ton of projects that are like it says at the top, they're open source, so they're basically just for people to learn from. So they're a really great resource, and you can see there's quite a few floral projects. So just download any one that you like. I'm going to be using this one, so download this one if you want to follow along exactly with me. So that's just what you'll do, and open it up in CINEMA4D. It'll pop up with some stuff if you're using like Redshift instead of Octane, but I'm going to be using Redshift anyway, so let's hop back here. So this is our final project. We'll take a look back at this in a second. And oh crud. Here we go. Sorry about that. My video was cropped a little bit too much. Okay. So this is our final, what we're going to be building, one kind of, version of what we'll be building in the end. So we'll have our main flower, and then we're also going to go over building a procedural stem and leaf setup. And then our flowers are going to be kind of surreal. So we're not going for absolute realism, but we are going to do our best to avoid intersections on the petals, and we're going to add some droplets to the leaves and the petals, and we're going to set it up so we can have a blooming animation as well. So we're going to make use of hair in this project. So it can get kind of slow when you include hair colliders. So if you're just wanting to preview things, just, leave it off. So we'll do that. And you can see we have this really nice blooming animation we're going to create. And, there's very few, if any, intersections along this animation. So it looks, pretty natural. One thing, the droplets don't follow exactly along with the geometry, so we'll talk about why that is and how we could fix that later on if we want, but it would basically involve baking out the geometry, and so it would make it non-procedural. And so we're just going to try to keep everything editable, and as much as we can. Some things maybe we won't be able to, but and this is kind of the farther away shot of our flower. You can see we have movement on our stem, and our leaves are following along, and we just have some nice movement. And again, it's going to be some really cool looking flowers. Let me pull up the pictures if you didn't see them. So I created a few just variations with the same with the same setup. And we're going to go over the shading as well, because there's some cool tricks to shade the flowers like this. And yeah, it's going to be a great time, and you're going to have a lot of cool tips, and going to be able to create a lot of like cool kind of stylized flowers when we're done. Okay. So let's start with, and also I wanted to mention, I'll upload the project file with the whole setup that I created if you want to, look through that, and or just create your own flowers from that. I'll clean this up, so make it a little organized, because with these procedural setups, they do tend to get a little bit confusing if it's not really well organized and labeled and stuff. So that's why also I think it'll be helpful to walk through the French Monkey's setup together, because I think it can be a little confusing, like figuring out how everything's linked together. So let's do that. So like I said, I downloaded one of his Everyday Asset Packs files, and you'll see that there is a flower already set up in here, and we're going to create, we're going to use his same methodology basically to create all our flowers. So when you think of flowers in CINEMA4D, you want to think Spline. That is the tool. That is the heart of all procedural flower setups, basically. It's really flexible and a cool tool if you've used it for other things, but for flowers, it is kind of the heart of it. And so you can see that in his setup. So like we've got 3 different setups that are all just variations on the same thing. So he has the innermost ones, and then the outer second layer, and then the largest petals. And within each, there are two layers basically of what's going on. So I think it's easiest to just go section by section, and we're just going to start with the outer flowers, because it's kind of the easiest to visualize. So, and when you're going through this, I think to figure out what's going on, just it's easiest to just turn things off and look at them one by one. So turn off the other ones that you're not looking at. This one, his are great. They have a lot of details, that you can get inspiration from. Like he has these inner petals that are, following along with this larger setup exactly. So it has, an inner petal, and there's other ways that you can create some cool realism, but that's cool. And we'll turn that one off for now as well. We're just going to focus on this one. And he's called them, I think he just copy and pasted the same setup a couple times, because they're each called sepal and stamen, but these are clearly not the stamen. They're the petals of the flower. So let's dive into this one. We're going to look at this, and we could rename it if we want to. Petals. So in CINEMA4D, it's kind of a hierarchy when you're building a procedural setup. And the one thing that's confusing is the way these each level of the hierarchy, where like what it refers to, might not be super apparent, right? So at the heart of this, we have the Spline and a Mo instance, so a MoGraph instance. So you have to dive into here, click on this, and think, okay, what is it referring to? It's referring to a petal model. And then you have to go and find that. So it's, okay, here it is. And it's referring to this little piece of geometry here that he's created. And which is, that's fine. Okay, that makes sense. It's a petal model, and we're building flowers. And that is the base of this whole thing, is this instanced petal. And then let's look at the next step is it's being spline wrapped along this Spline. So that's kind of the heart of it, right? So we have a petal being wrapped along this Spline. And so we can turn off, I think, again, like as we start from the beginning, turn everything off, so you understand what's happening from the ground up. So let's turn off the cloner. Let's turn off the subdivision. Let's turn off the cloth surface. And then we have this is the heart of what is happening here. This section of petals is being cloned in a circular fashion. You can see the cloner is set to radial. So if we adjust this, we can see there's different layers of petal assemblies we can make, and a lot of this ultimately will be playing around to see what you like best, and also what achieves a nice level of realism. In terms of the main thing is probably you just want to avoid as many nasty, just blatant intersections of geometry as possible. And okay, so yeah, that's what's happening basically. So if we grab a Mo spline, you can see that it's just a line, and you can let me see. So it's on. Let's do line, and let's have some segments. And okay, let's turn it to 360. Okay. So this is the Mo spline object, and you can see probably why it's really great for making flowers, because it's like a really specific cloner for lines and creating line shapes. So in these radial patterns specifically, so you can see it's cloned a bunch of lines in that fashion, and then this is the number of segments. We can tell it how much of an angle we want the lines to be spread across. So we're just going to start with 360 just to see how everything's working. And then you can see all these other controls that we have. So you can get instant feedback on, visually what these options are going to do in terms of the look of the flower and everything. So some of the more important ones are going to be curve and bend. You can already kind of probably see how using these tools will allow you to really control finely the shape of your flower, and then do some really easy and pretty animations, just setting this up and driving it from the Mo spline. And you can see we can get all kinds of wacky shapes and different styles of animating those flowers opening up. And basically we can control the size here, and so with each of these controls, one thing you may not, see initially, because I don't think I saw this initially, is you can twirl down these menus and adjust how these controls affect how effective they are along the length of the spline. So if we press Control click to add points to any of these kind of graphs, and you can see we can control how they are spread out across the 360. If we wanted to modify that, we don't really need to right now, but we might, we might end up doing something with the bend. You could, have some more fine-tuned control over exactly how you want things to look with these controls, which is something we can get into later on when we get a little bit farther down the line. And yeah, so segments obviously is just the number of petals we'll have, or sepals or stamen in our flower in the different parts. object, I think, yeah, obviously we want to leave this on simple and let's see. So you can kind of carve away parts of the splines as well, which, you know, could potentially be useful in having, you know, some kind of blooming animation. I didn't use this for the ones that I made. I mean, but you can just see like how you could combine a couple of these controls and have some really like interesting growing, blooming animation, especially if you combine this with like scaling these up as you animate these parameters. And, you know, like, again, with the offset could potentially have some, you know, some use in animating, maybe even not with flowers, but just know about this so you can use it in other contexts as well. You know, you can see that there's a lot of really fun ways you can, you know, make things work right out of the box with it. And you can increase the end to have it continue along even farther. And I think that's the basics of the Mo spline of what we're going to cover. So if we look at the Mo spline in these flower projects, you can see all the settings that he's used to create the shape that he has, and you can look in the drop down menus to see how he's changed things, if he's changed anything. So it looks like, you know, on the bend there's a pretty significant change here. So just be aware that those twirl down menus are there, and you'll want to modify them if you want to match exactly what's going on in this one. And, you know, you could even probably copy all these and paste them here if you wanted just to take everything from those and work with those values, because, you know, I think he's spent a lot of time setting things up so that they will work quickly with the cloner setup. So yeah, I mean, and so that's the heart of it. That's the heart of the basis of what, you know, we're going to be doing and how these setups are built. It's again, we have some piece of geometry spline wrapped around a Mo spline, and then cloned in a circular array. And then we have layers, right? We have like a petal layer, and again, you can, once you build a couple of these, and then you can, you know, copy and paste them, and you know, you'll just start to make tweaks to the kind of same base setup like he's done here. Like we talked about, his whole setup is just copy and pasted and modified versions of the same setup. And so he has, you know, 3 layers: the innermost layer, the second layer, the outer petals, and then the inner petals. So each layer has 2 layers within it. So you know, you can see, especially with this inner one, it's very cool. He's got like the really hook sharp, I don't know what these are called. My biology is not on point right now. And then the kind of, you know, pine cone looking features as well. So, you know, very cool. And these kind of structures would definitely hold up, you know, really well to even close up shots. And the great thing too is this all runs in super fast. There's no issue with, you know, how many clones or anything like with these setups. They're super, super fast. So that's kind of our introduction to everything. And the next thing we're going to do is we're gonna start building our own setup from scratch. So that's next. Okay, here we are in a fresh, clean project file of CINEMA4D, and we're gonna start our procedural flower build. And like all great stories, this starts with a plane, and we don't need this many segments, so let's just reduce it down to 2. And it's gonna be it's supposed to be pretty small because this is going to be our pedal. Remember, we talked about we have a pedal that's kind of at the heart of everything in this setup. So what we're even going to do is we're going to delete half of it, but I think let me think. So yeah, let's get maybe 3. Yeah, something like that. And let's just hop into edit mode and points mode. And then let's do that. And then we're gonna delete half of these. And then we're going to add in a symmetry object. So we don't have to worry about, doing symmetry on the editing level or any of that shenanigans nonsense. Then we're going to hop back into points mode and shape our bass pedal a little bit. So let's go out here a little bit and in here a little bit and down a little bit with that one, out this way, out probably a little bit there, and send these all up a little bit. And yeah, that is probably pretty good for now. Yeah. So one thing you can see why is this is weird. This is not supposed to happen. You want to turn Weld on so that it creates one piece of geometry. So make sure that you do that, because otherwise, weird stuff will happen that you don't want to happen, and we want to avoid that. So our bass pedal is in shape, and we're going to add a subdivision surface so that we can see kind of more of what it's going to look like. And we can even go back into our editing mode and, continue to make any little alterations we want. Once you have the subdivision surface on there, you might notice, we can make things a little bit more exaggerated, just because it kind of, it kind of rounds everything out and reduces the shape a little bit. So you might need to hop back in and reshape things. Yeah, I think that's pretty good, pretty standard little flower shape. And so, this is the base. This is something that differs, from the setup we looked at. This is a procedural flower pedal setup. So you can go back and make any changes you want to make to this at any point. And let's look at adding some thickness to this as well. So let's turn off the subdivision and add some thickness. So one thing when I was doing this project, I realized, doing this stack of subdivision and then cloth surface is not the ideal way to do things, because you end up with really thick, weird looking extruded edge that's just straight like we just saw. So what we want to do is probably, you can use cloth surface or thicken. Let's do something like that, and then subdivide. And you can see, you can see we have like a more natural looking form, because we're doing the subdivision after the thicken modifier has been put in place. So I would recommend that you do that, or the cloth surface modifier. Okay, so like we had, like I just said, you want to use a thicken or cloth surface modifier and then a subdivision in your stack, and that will even out the edges and make them curved and round and nice looking, rather than just a stark, straight line, which is not very plant-like. And you can see kind of like, even with this shape and thickness, like you could build something like a succulent plant pretty easily. Like, yeah, like one of these, something like this, you could make pretty easily, I think. And I mean, maybe this would be a good place to start if you're feeling a little intimidated by the whole, creating a whole flower at once, because I think these would be a little simpler. Because it's ultimately just one layer, that you would do, and you'd make the petals a little thicker, and they probably wouldn't end up bending or animating as much, because they look like they're probably much thicker, more solid leaves. Yeah, so that would be a cool thing to do. Just like look at one of these pictures and make your own succulent. Okay, so that's our base of our that is our procedural petal generator, right? So we could put this into a null and call it petal generator, and then like I said, we can go back and change whatever we want later on. And so like we talked about, the next thing we'll need is a spline to wrap these things around. So let's grab that, and we can maybe hide our petal generator. So for the visualization on this, we want to have display mode line. We just want to see the line, and then we want simple for the mode, and then we'll go into our main tab of controls, and let's say we want 367, and let's bend these upwards, and then let's look back at the previous example. So we have in a base group, we have the petal being spline wrapped around the most spline. So let's do that first. So, and it also looks like he approaches doing the surfacing operations later. So on the whole flower before it's cloned. So you can do that too. Let's drop down our spline wrap in our petal generator, and if it's in a null, as long as it's on the same level as what you're trying to spline wrap, it will work just fine. Or it should. Oh, there you go. I had the visualization off. Okay, let's set it back. So usually I think think our pedal is probably pointing down the x-axis. Let me make sure. So if we move this, no, okay, so it's pointing down the z-axis. Okay, so if it's pointing down the z-axis, then the x or z should work just fine. Y will not. I mean, and it's like you can make it look however you want, but for this we're gonna probably go with the z axis, and you can see already our flower base is starting to take shape with just a spline wrap and a Mo spline and a pedal base geometry. So we covered some of the controls in the spline wrap, and when you think of your customizing your flower shapes and petals and all that, I want you to mainly think of modifying the Mo spline and the spline wrap. Those are going to be kind of your controls for modifying the look of things. And so we talked about some of the controls in the Mo spline object, and now we're going to talk about some of the controls in the spline wrap object. So strength, let's see what happens. So this is just going to push it farther away or farther in from the spline that you're feeding into it. And then offset is, sending it farther along, in or out along the spline. So this is what we can use. We can use a little bit of this to avoid those intersections at the base of the, if we have any. And then same thing with the from and the to. We can use those to avoid having intersections at the base. And we could use the from to make the ends longer of our flower, make a really weird flower growing towards the sky. Do you want the mode is set to fit spline, and if we set it to keep length, it's going to try to keep the length of the geometry the same as what you fed in. So, that might be what you're after. And for this one, I think we'll keep it on fit spline. And then the end mode, we want it to just be able to extend past the end of the splines. So those are the basic controls. And then in the Mo spline object, we can modify the length if we want to have a little bit smaller shape. So we can see we're starting to run into our first issue, which is like, okay, well, if I want to modify it like this, I'm starting to get some intersections down here, which you can clearly see. Let me turn off the symmetry visualizer so we don't have to look at that, and also the spline wrap, so we can kind of see things a little bit more clearly. And I mean, right now it doesn't look, it looks fine. Like if this was what you were building, like this is fine. But if we, at a certain point, things are going to look weird, and you're, going to want to have some more control over fixing those intersections. So a place you can go to try fixing some of those is the size of the size parameter of the spline wrap object. So size is the size of the geometry that you're feeding in. Spline is the size of the spline. So like if we increase this, you can clearly see it's getting much bigger. If we decrease it, it's getting smaller. And what we talked about earlier is we can modify it along the length of the spline itself. So we can set it to always be 0 at the base, and have it expand out as much as we want. So we could really fine tune the control over making sure parts aren't intersecting that we don't want them to be. And then spline size, same kind of thing. You get pretty similar control over the shape or the size along the spline. So you can get really fine tuned with the control and the shape of your petals. And remember, control click to add points along the spline, and just customize it to your heart's content, really. And then we have rotation. So this will rotate the geometry along the spline. So let's set some kind of rotation. So you can see that is rotating it along the spline. And if we set, let's set, Okay. Well, you'd think setting an up vector would change how it looks, but maybe if I add something like that in, it will. Okay. I guess not. But regardless, you can see how this could be used to create, interesting pedal shapes. And I think this is one of the tools I used in one of my in one of my pictures. I think in this purple one, I think I probably used something, probably that control. If yeah, let's turn that off for now. Leave it at 0. And if you want to have more control over the points on this graph, just twirl down this menu, and you can set the values here. Instead of trying to guess what the value is, you can set them here and change the interpolation. Like we want it linear, and we want this one linear, and yeah, just more control. Or show in a separate window is probably even easier. Just do it all here. Okay, and then yeah, you can obviously control the strength as well. Whoops. Okay, spline rotation, pretty much similar to what we just talked about. So we're just going to leave that be. The bounding box, this I believe would creates a bounding box around the incoming geometry to determine the size, basically the size of it coming in. And if you modify the bounding box center, you're basically modifying where the box around the geometry will start being fed into the spline wrap. So you can see, if we modify it on Y, you can push the center up or down of where the splines are starting. And if we do it along the Z, we can push. It's basically pushing it along the spline, like some of those other controls we were looking at earlier. So I would probably, only modify the bounding box if you really need to, because this is one of the mechanisms at the heart of making this operator work. So you could mess something up and not know. You might not remember to go back and turn this back to what it was when you first fed it in. But we can also use it to create a little dip for our flower. So we will. But I'm gonna revert it back to where it was. Okay. So we have a base of a flower shape here, and now we know that we can use the spline wrap and the MoSpline controls to modify the shape of our flower. So one thing that I forgot to do is make sure that you turn on the grow mode to separate segments, or else you will get weird, unexpected behavior from the MoSpline looking like it's only affecting one of the petals. So let me just modify that a little bit, and okay. So one thing that's fun to do is using the length, extending the end to create kind of these curled tips on the ends of your flowers, and playing with that and the length and the bend to start to really, visualize, okay, what's the shape of this flower going to look like. And if we need to get things closer here in the middle, we can do that. We can modify, like I said, really anything that you're going to look to modify is going to be in the spline wrap or the Spline. And so we're already getting something that's looking pretty nice. However, we do have some gnarly intersections here. So we probably, you can leave them spread apart, because we're going to add a little bulb for where the head of the flower is, or you can leave them all put together and just kind of hide that with other parts of the flower. Either way is going to work just fine, and I think this is a good start for things. And you can see basically the blossoming animation will be controlled with these controls here, primarily the bend and the curve. And if you want to get really crazy, some twist as well, some kind of outward, inward type movement is really cool. And let's try that. You can see how, really just you could get some really beautiful organic looking flower movement. And if you don't push it beyond where you should, you can just kind of control this without getting any intersections at all. So it's not going to just look immediately just this doesn't look good, because when you see flower animations and things like that, you don't want to see intersections. So yeah, that's like our basic shape, and we're going to keep working on that from there. All right, let's continue onward in our floral journey. So we have our basic setup here with petals along a Spline object, and you can already see that even if we didn't use a cloner, this could be a layer of the flower, or this could be a flower in and of itself. Like, you don't have to use the cloner setup, but I think it's good to know how to do both in case you want to use either one or layer them together. I think you can get some really cool effects that way, by using something like this as like the outer petals and then having more density on an inner layer. So let's set it up with the cloner. So we'll just drop our whole petal generator into a cloner. If you alt click on the cloner, it'll just automatically parent it to whatever you have selected. And then we'll switch this to render instance, and make sure you do that because I don't think it will show up if you don't do that. And we want, like we mentioned earlier, we want radial. We don't need any radius. We need a radius of 0. And there you go. Okay. Sometimes things get weird. Just click around until something works. Okay. So now we have it cloned in a radial fashion, but it doesn't look, like a layered flower like we want it to. So for that, we need to go into our Spline object and modify some settings. So if you look through the French monkey setups, you know that he modifies the angle. Let me turn off the cloner while we do this, actually. So he modifies the angle so that they're going across not the full 360 degrees. And then this angle P will also influence the, let me see if I can, Oh, here we go. So here, this is how it's set up in his example. So it raises each pedal up a little bit according to the angle that we put in here. So if it's at 0, they're all kind of in a flat array, and we need each one to be going up a little bit so that there's like space to make those layers of rows for the flower. So I switched this from 1 to 0 as well. Just switch this from its starting. And then let's turn back on our cloner and see what we've got. So you can see by doing that, we start to get our actual flower shape and everything going on here. So that's a critical step for creating layers in your flower. And then like we talked about earlier, you can just, add in as many as you want. And let's hop back in here, and then we can, you can play with all these settings and really dial things into where, you think they look best. But yeah, as of right now, that looks pretty good. And, we have still like a lot of pedals, but not any really obvious intersections or anything like that. So that's looking great, I think. And yeah, like we talked about, you could do something like this and then have another layer outside of it, of like larger pedals. And then let's minimize those so that we can start to see how our animation will look. So something like that's going to look cool, I think. And yeah, you can see if you have extend end of the spline on, the bend might not look right because it's gonna change length throughout that animation. So whatever you want, but it'll change. Just know that it'll change length if you have that setting on. Then we can see kind of where the bounds of our bend is, where we start to see intersections coming through as well. So we can set that up. And then on our bend also, I modified the spline quite a bit to have just more of a custom kind of shape of how things are bending. And yeah, because really we don't want this inner start part to really bend very much at all. Mostly just want the outer part to bend, right? So that looks good. And okay. Oh yeah, so this won't do anything if you go beyond 100 if you don't have extend end on. If you do, it will it will try to extend it, and you can get some cool shapes, but then like we talked about, our bend animation will look a little bit wonky because it is trying to bend those elongated ends. So maybe we could kind of, you could kind of try to fix that in some way. I don't know how exactly you could kind of get rid of that. Let's see if there's anything we can do. Well, it does look cool. It does look pretty cool, I think, with those folds you get. So I might leave it on for now and then turn it off later if I need to. Yeah, that looks nice. And then one thing about the MoSpline object is it works with forces. So let me show you an example of what I did in my setup. So I threw in a turbulence, and we can see that it's working perfectly right off the bat. That's what we wanted. Turn down the frequency of that. Huh. Well, that does not look right, does it? Okay, so that's because the scale is set to 0, and that just sends it into hyperdrive or something. So yeah, you can see with turbulence on, we get some really beautiful organic motion, but you have to be careful because you can get overlaps, right? Because you're not really in control of the motion. So I would recommend just keeping it really low. And yeah, you can get some really beautiful waving in the wind type action. So yeah, we're going to have that on. It's another detail that we're going to add in. And then another detail we can add is having some more real displacement along the pedals. So we're going to use the displacer, and we need that on the same level after our spline wrap. And then let's turn that to like 1 or 2 for now, and turn on noise. You can see something's happening. Turn down the global scale so we can have a finer noise. And then let's go back up, and okay, you got to be really careful with the noise, because it can create intersections even within the pedals themselves. So like this is not another pedal. This is just the same pedal, because the displacement's too great. And maybe we could increase the thickness to compensate for that, or I guess maybe we could could we put the displacer on the same level? Yeah, we could put the displacer up here. Let's do that. But then we will need more subdivision afterwards. Okay. Oh, and yeah, this looks like it may not even work anyways. Oh yeah, okay. And another here, let me redo this back here. Okay. So if we do intensity instead of intensity centered, I believe that could help with our problem of having the intersections kind of creep up on us while using the displacer. So let's use that setting, the intensity instead. And that'll be fine. Let's reduce this. Like 0.2. And then we can even add animation speed into our displacer as well. So then, there's another layer of like motion happening. So now we've got kind of two layers of motion, one from the turbulence and one from this noise on a displacer. That's looking nice. And with the displacer, just always, remember that in here in the shader, you can select a layer and add in layers of noises or other effects. So, we can just add in another noise overlaid and just, do whatever. Stack all kinds of effects. So yeah, that looks fine for now. And I think the next thing that we will cover is creating kind of the stem and bulb for our plant. So we can throw that in a null real quick. And then we're going to start creating our bulb and flower. So let's call this stem. And for the bulb, we'll just use a cone. Add some rotation segments in there. Throw that in there as kind of our central part of our flower. And yeah, that looks good. Good placeholder for now. And then we're going to go about creating the stem itself. I'll leave that out here. So we have a pretty cool technique for creating the stem. What we're going to do is do it procedurally. So we're going to create a line that we can modify it at any time. And we're going to do that with using a bunch of nulls and the tracer object. So let's click here. Let's say start and end. So our start is going to be right at the origin, or maybe even, maybe we lift it up a little bit. The end point will be, let's say, down here somewhere. That looks fine. And then each subsequent null will be, lower and in sequence. Okay, so you can kind of see I laid out like a wavy pattern. And then what we're going to grab is the tracer object. We're not going to trace paths. We're going to do connect elements. And we're going to drag in our start. Throw that in there. Okay. We want connect all objects. And let's change the type to, I think, cubic is good. And then what we're going to do is, whoops. And then what we're going to do is use another spline wrap. So we are going to, nope, not on the tracer. We're going to get a capsule and spline wrap that along the tracer. So spline wrap the capsule along the tracer. And the axis is, yeah, we just want Y. And then we're going to need to modify the capsule a little bit right off the bat. Just give it some more segments and stuff. And then on the spline wrap itself, we can change the size here. So if we want to have the stem get a little finer at the end where the flower is, we can just reduce the size there, and then modify this with the size strength modifier or the spline size strength. And let's go to our tracer. I don't think this will matter. Yeah. So if we want to increase the resolution, we just have to do that on the object itself. Just bump up a lot of height segments. And then the cool thing about this is then we can go and take any of these points and, move them around wherever we want to. The end point, we can, move around wherever. Can grab a couple of them at the same time. And yeah, so that is, fully procedural kind of way to build a stem. And one thing I think we'll want to do is here, right at the end, let's give ourselves another point and make a fat bulb there, because we want a fat little bulb for our flower. Something like that looks nice, and kind of straighten that out a little bit. Yeah, something like that I think looks pretty good. Just make sure it lines up right there. And then we can delete our cone that was our reference. Now we're starting to get a nice little flower going like that. Okay. So you can also procedurally animate the movement of the stem, like it is also, blowing in the wind, like our flower is, by adding a vibrate tag to it and doing, position and let's say 5 on X and 2 on Y and 5 on Z. Turn down the frequency. Let's see what we've got here. So you can see this little point that we added that to is moving now. If we copy this tag, whoops, we don't need all those. If we copy that tag to all of them except the start and end points, we'll get some nice movement to our stem as well. We can turn off the work plane if we want to just see what's going on with the stem. And if we want, we can change the seed on these so that they're not all perfectly in sync. And we can adjust, adjust the movement of them just individually so we can get more movement on any of them that we want in any of the axes. So that's kind of how you can set up the procedural animation of the stem as well, and then your start and end points are going to remain in place. So that works well. The next thing we'll do for the we'll set up the inside. So we're going to make another version of what we created already. So let's we can just kind of copy the whole thing, and then we will just delete the parts we don't need. We don't need another turbulence. And then our most spline, we're going to shrink it down. Probably move this whole apparatus up a little bit. We'll see once we get down into it. And then let's see. Let's see what the French monkey did on the inside. I like these things a lot. I want to see what they are. Okay, so this is just a cylinder, and then yeah, he messed with the size of it. So we can also do that. So instead of our pedal generator that we created, we can really just get simple here, and we're going to use that radius 1, height 1, and basically get rid of all this except get rid of all that. And spline wrap probably along, what is it, Y. And give ourselves some more height segments. So we have, we can make some actual nice looking geometry. And then we're going to go into our most spline here. Maybe bring our bend inward. And for this one, let's not extend the end. But we can fillet the ends. Doesn't look great, or we can, like we talked about, change the size on the spline wrap itself. Like that. And we have a nice little thing, in the center of our flower. And yeah, we're gonna need to play around with the most spline to get everything just right again. Just playing around with the bend modifier a lot here, so that I can kind of place that more directly in the center. And then, we could play with our cloners, see if we can get a larger amount in there that looks okay. Yeah, something like that looks totally fine for me. And let's then move on to, if you saw my example, I also had some pollen or something coming out of the center in here. Okay, so we've got our flower, we've got our stem, and we've got our inner flower. We're going to do that all in X particles, or technical term, other nonsense. So. And our last element is going to be kind of pollen or particles shooting out from the innermost part of the flower. So let's just do a sphere. Let's put it right in there. Probably needs some dimension, maybe 4. And we are going to use an emitter. And our emitter is going to be let's see. Okay, so you can see our emitter is shooting out some particles, but we need it to be smaller. Make it quite a bit smaller, and we're going to adjust some settings within the emitter itself. Okay. So let's crank up the birth rate. that's fine. We just set, whatever emission length you want. And let's add some. Let's make the lifetime 96, so 4 seconds. Add some variation to that. Add some variation to the speed as well. Maybe rotation. And scale will be 0. Show objects. And then, okay. So you can see that's also being affected by the turbulence we set up earlier in the first flower. So if you want to be more selective about that, you can go to the include or exclude forces tab, and then be more specific with maybe you just make a force just for the emitter and you make another one just for the flower. Okay, so you can see in our emitter, the particles are scaling down over time, which is, what we want, but they're huge. So we will need to have them be, let's try 0.2, something like that. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah. So we'll put the emitter down in our bulb, in our center bulb. And then we can see that it is emitting particles. And they're scaling down over their lifetime. Oops. Scaling down over their lifetime, and we can crank this even more. And let's see. All right. Well, I think that's looking pretty good. And we might want to limit the birth rate or birth time a little bit. So, and then when we set up if we set up a blooming animation, we can also synchronize that with the emission of the particles as well. So cool. We have all our elements of our flower now set up. I'm going to reduce the kind of movement of some of these points on here. So this one, yeah. Let's say this one. Okay, I think that looks all right. And now we'll do our bend animation real quick. We'll go into our main flower. And where is our most spline? There it is. Okay. So in here, we'll set up our bending animation, and we're like we saw earlier, we have this weird kind of thing happening because our extend end is on. So I think I'm just gonna leave it on, honestly. And we can also move our center of our flower down a little bit, and then let's see what this bend animation ends up looking like. Okay, so this will be our end point. We'll put that at maybe 120. Go back to the beginning and find our starting point. So around there looks fine. Looks like we'll that displacement looks a little funky. Okay. Let's just increase the scale a bit, see if that helps. Okay. So yeah, I think those ends of the plant are kind of bothering me. So I'm gonna turn this off again, and then maybe we can have our bend modifier be even a little stronger. Yeah. Maybe weaken it a little bit here. Yeah. Something like that. Starting to look quite good. And one thing also that you can play around with is the twist of these petals. So I did this in a couple of the examples that I made, and this just adds a nice little twist. And got to be careful though with it to avoid intersections, and maybe we will want to do something where we're modifying it along the length of the spline. Just gonna have to play with the settings, because I really don't like the intersections, so I really try to avoid them as best as I can. But yeah, I mean, it is ultimately, it just becomes kind of a matter of playing with the settings until you find what you really are looking for. And I think if we're in close like this, those still might be a little big on the emission of the particles. Reduce those a little bit. Yeah. I might turn down the speed a little too. Okay. I think that's pretty much it for our flower and our animation. The next thing we'll do is add some leaves to our stem. So let's reuse our petal as our leaf. Just kind of going to cheat a little bit. Snag this out of here. We can delete the spline wrap. We don't need that. We can delete all of that stuff. And then, yeah, that will be good. And we will clone this along an object, which is going to be the spline wrapped capsule. Let's try that. Okay, so we've got that pretty much set up. So we took our pedal generator and cloned it onto the stem object, which is our capsule that is spline wrapped around the procedural spline we set up using nulls. And so you saw me, you want to make sure align clone is on. And then I moved the axis of what we're cloning, which is ultimately we're cloning the subdivision surface. So at the level right below the cloner, move your axis to right at the base of the leaf, because that's where the clone will be cloned at that point. So you want to move that so it lines up better. And I modified the up vector to be y plus, so pointing just in the world's up direction. And then we have a bunch of clones that are being cloned on the surface, which is what we want. And we can, play with the count of them. And one thing that we probably want to do is, not have leaves up at the very top and at the very bottom. So one possible way that we can deal with that using a cloner is just using an effector, an effector, and we'll do a plane effector. We'll call this, what should we call this? The leaves. And our plane effector will be set to scale, uniform scale, all the way down. And then we'll add some fields in here. So we're going to use the spherical field. Change the inner offset a little bit, shrink it down. And yeah, I mean, we could make it so that, there's just really tiny leaves. That's probably fine. And then we could add another spherical field down here at the bottom. Something like that. Shrink those leaves down. And, we can play with the inner offset and the size of the field to get whatever we're after. And if we really want to get funky with it, we can put this spherical field on any one of these points that are creating this spline. So the endpoint here, let's go to rigging, constraint, transform constraint, transform tab. Target is going to be the end null. and then it's always going to just stick there. So if we moved our end point, our spherical field's going to go along with it. So that's just, I think that's helpful. We have some little errors here with two clones right on top of each other. So, you know, a pretty simple way to try to fix this is by just changing the seed until we get something that works better. Honestly, I think that's a pretty good strategy. And yeah, so I think that the leaves are set up. You know, we can do the same thing here, but we, instead of end, we would be on start, and spherical field, we can kind of, you know, play with something like that. Okay. So yeah, our flower is taking shape. It's looking pretty good. On our leaves, we can throw those into a cloth surface, add some thickness to them. Looking pretty weird. Because they're all... Oh. There you go. So they have some thickness to them. And then we will, what I did, just because I wanted to have fun and make these look kind of strange, otherworldly flowers, is I added hair along the stem. So if you haven't played around with the hair in CINEMA4D, it is super fun, and I recommend you play around with it. So we will, let's close some stuff. We're just going to click on the stem and then simulate hair objects, add hair, and it will look absolutely bananas, because we need to reduce the length of these. And yeah, hair tends to be kind of slow, unfortunately. But let's reduce the number of guides to 2,000. And okay. Okay, so these guides are showing you where the hair is gonna be on your model, and you can go under hair tools and brush the hair, so you can get it into maybe like a particular shape that you want it ahead of time. Also, you can use forces. The hairs are dynamic by default, and you can turn off dynamics if you want, but you just know that it has its own gravity, so separate from the scene simulation, it has its own gravity force, and other forces will affect it just like normal. So if we play this, you can see it's being affected by gravity. We turn gravity off, you can see it's just being affected by our turbulence. So you can see it simulates really fast, but it's not colliding with our stem. So if you did add the stem as a collider, it would slow it down significantly. But I don't know if we need to do that. So we'll do some tests and then just kind of see what looks best. I think we're ready to set up a camera. So let's do that. I tend to like longer focal lengths. Something, with our, something with our flower at the focal point. We can switch this to social media dimensions as well. So we have more real estate to play with vertically. Okay. Looks fine. Looks like a good angle. It's kind of what I did for mine. And one more thing before we get started on the rendering and shading part is for the shading of the petals specifically, there's a neat little trick that I like to use. So we'll go under flower. What should we call this? Flower setup. Throw the leaves in there, throw the particles in there. Let's call this something else, pollen. Add the hair in there. Okay, we have everything in there. Yes, all right. And the most spline, okay. That is what we're gonna use here. Let's turn off the hair for now. All right. So what we need to do is we're gonna make a copy of this cloner. So we can just clone the whole thing and delete all this, and then make a copy of our most spline and put it in there in the cloner. Because we just want to create a copy of all of the splines so that we have one for each petal, basically. So you can see now that we have a spline for each petal as well. So you'll do that, and then what we're going to do is go into I think we can just do it on the cloner itself. Let's just do vertex map. And we're going to drag in this cloner into this as a spline object. And you can already see, beautiful. This is exactly what we're going to do. So there's, you can drag a spline object into a vertex map and change the distance mode. So along is setting up a vertex map from 0 to 1 along each spline. So if we modify the range start, we can get a nice gradient along the center to the outer portion. So let's name this in out. Why not? And then let's create a copy and call this we'll call this petal. Whoops. What the hell? Okay. We'll call this petal, and we'll call this inner. Okay. Let's go into the petal one, because we're going to change this from along to radius. And then we're going to modify the radius a little bit, like something like that. And then go into remapping. And then we can play with this kind of remapping to our heart's content. And so you can see we have two really nice maps for texturing. We're going to have, this will be our primary one. So this will blend between two materials, an outer and an inner. And then on that outer material, this map will drive it. And I mean, you could use either of these just by themselves too. But I think I used both. So let's set that up first. We have a hair material that comes by default. with the hair object when you add it in, and we'll cover that in a second. But let's just make a couple materials for ourselves. Flower main, stem, whoops, leaves, pollen. We'll need a couple others. Center that thing, and once we make some droplets, we'll have that too. Okay, so flower main. We're gonna need 3 materials ultimately. 2 material blenders, 2 vertex attributes, and that is all. So like I said, our first vertex attribute we're going to use is the inner, and we are going to use that to blend between 2 materials. Our first 2 materials, the innermost and the outer. So that will be our first material blender, is the inner. And for our second one, it will be that petal one, just running along the inside of each petal. And okay. I think, okay. Okay, that is now set up correctly. So we wanted to set up this one first as our first material blender, and then have that be going into the second input of the final material blender, so that material will be on the outside, and it's much easier to visualize once we get some colors on there. Okay, so we'll drag that onto our cloner here, and then we will add in a dome light so that we can see something, and then let's grab our render view, throw that to the side, and see what we've got. All right, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about here with the shading. We have an in to out one, so one material that's kind of in the middle, and then on the outside we have our inner petal vertex map driving that, and they're all separate materials, so you can do, anything you want to with each of them. And then we'll have a material for our leaves. Material for our stem. The hair material is already applied. The center. We can do that same thing we just did with the flower splines. So clone the most splines, or actually, yeah, we did that as well. So on here, let me get out of here. Yeah, so go in here, other vertex map, drag that in as a spline object. Along, we could have that go from in to out, or radius. Let's try 0.5. This one, I don't think it's going to make as much of a difference. So we'll just do that, and that'll be nice. There we go. That's set up. Call that center. Drag that on there. And let me just grab that from the other one. Grab this, copy and paste. Go to the center and paste that in there. Nope. Boom, 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 boom. And change the vertex attribute to center. And we are in business. Okay. Everything's got a material on it now, and we're looking good. Okay. The only thing is throw the hair back on. Let's see. All right, let's see what the hair looks like now. All right. We can see it's on there. It's kind of, there's some weird sections though, so let's see if we can do something about that. So originally there were like there were a bunch of guides. I don't know an easy way to reset them to their initial position. So if somebody knows, let me know, because I'm just going to delete it and do it again. So we're adding our hair. We're going to go with 4, maybe 3. Yeah, 3's fine. And then we're going to go on the capsule, hair tag, hair collider. This is what I was talking about. You can make objects collide with the hair for dynamics. And that's going to slow things down, but we're fine with that. And let's say -3 on the gravity. And I wonder if we can just... Okay, for some reason it's being weird. But hey, it's all right. And so you can see that the hair is colliding with the stem, and there's gravity and all this fun stuff going on. And yeah, it's on there now. I think maybe I don't want gravity on there. Let's see what this looks like without gravity. And you can go into your hair tab if you want to increase the hair count or segments. Okay, looking something like that. Hairs might be a little thick for my taste, so I'm going to go into our hair material. This is basically where you control every aspect of the hair. So let's turn this down to maybe 0.2, 0.0. 4. Let's try that first. What about 0.1 and 0.01? All right, I think that looks a little better, but it's also not going to be as thick as it was. And then color, what's a fun color? Let's do like dark blue. And like light pink. And transparency is if you want it to be kind of like softer, see-through, like fur type hair. And it increases the render time a good amount. So just, think about that. What else? There's all these, options you can use to add character to your hair. Some that are fun are kink. Add some like wavy behavior to the hair, and clump is fun. Get it to kind of like stick in little tufts, and yeah, just play around with all these. You can control them, like you can control the length, like if you wanted to control it by a vertex map or something, that's something you can do. If you want to do that, though, you will have to make sure that you go into Redshift, System, Legacy, and CINEMA4D hair evaluation on. And even then, I think you need to click the render option to see it. You won't be able to see it in any of these kind of preview renders. Okay, so our hair is set up. Let's see what happens if we kick up the hair count a little bit. It's obviously going to be slower, so keep that in mind when you're thinking about, all your hair stuff. Okay, that looks good. Let's turn off the transparency. I don't really want or need that right now, and it's just going to slow things down. All right, cool. That looks, good enough for what we're doing. The stem. Let's change the stem color to something stemmy. We're not going to really see it, but whatever. Okay, so for these, the leaves, probably going to go with subsurface scattering on these. Let's do something dark and reduce the scale quite a bit so we get some light coming through. Maybe increase the roughness a little bit. And then on our, forgot with the dynamics, it always takes forever for the hair. If you move around the timeline, it's going to take forever. So be careful, or you'll end up like me, having maybe CINEMA4D crash. So just wait. Well, I think we're coming along just fine, and we're getting close. We're getting close to kind of the final thing. So we just need to kind of do some refining of the shading and the lighting, and what else? Do the droplets on the leaves and the petals. And then I think that'll wrap it up. All right. It's like I said, folks, you got to be careful with the hair. I thankfully did not fully crash and lose my progress, but it took a while for it to load. So we are back in business, and I turned off the hair. So we'll finish things up without it for right now. So yeah, we'll just finish up with our shading stuff here real quick. Let's quickly do something with this flower. So I'm thinking for this, this is going to be like a pink pink type flower. So we're going to start with like maybe a darkish blue, bluish purpley in the middle. And instead of this green, maybe we're going to do like something like that. And on the farthest outside, let's do like a light blue, like that. Okay. Those are the colors I want, but in fact, I think what we're going to want to do is have all that be in the subsurface instead. So let's do that here. What do I do? Ah, there it is. Jeez. Took me forever to find that. Well, that took forever and it was wrong, so I'm not going to do that again. Not gonna waste time doing that. Okay. Back a little bit. This is the pink one. And then we have light blue. Okay. That looks all right for now. And then our center guy. Let's have this be kind of light purpley color. And then a brighter blue. Yeah. Something like that looks cool. And for the leaves and the petals, I think for an additional level of detail, you might just want to use a texture, an image texture, like one that I used on the petals and the leaves, I think, was this texture pack from the French monkey. That is it's called retina. It's like these vein type material textures. Let me find them real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so, you can't really see it very well here, but it's these veiny type images that you can use as bump maps. So that'll add a nice level of realism, hopefully. We can just pump that into the bump map, and then we can solo it to see what it looks like, and then make adjustments, or we could even modify it per clone if we wanted to, but I'm not going to do that right now. So if you're dying to know how to do that, you can let me know and I'll make something short on that. Okay. So yeah, that'll be on there. It'll be hard to see in the viewport right now, so we'll just know that it's working. Ready for our final renders. Do the same thing on the leaves. Same thing, bada boom, bada bing. And what about what's going on with our pollen? You know, it's kind of hard to see right now. Might be cool to give it a little emission, something like that, and then when we have a different background, we'll be able to see it. Okay, all right, okay. Just gonna delete the hair collider for now, disable the dynamics. And then we're going to add our droplets in. Let's do that. So this will be a pretty simple one, I think. Just need a sphere. Let's make that 2, maybe 1, and put that in a cloner. The cloner is going onto an object. The object is the cloner for our leaves. I would, rename all these things if I was really trying to stay organized, which is probably a good idea because there's a lot of stuff. And then we've got a lot of little droplets forming on our leaves, which is good. We want that, and then we'll do a little randomization on the scale. And maybe reduce the number a little bit, maybe play with the seed a little bit, and something like that should be good for now. And then as our leaves move, our drops will move along with it. So that's totally cool. Procedural, same kind of thing is gonna go on our petals as well. So let's find our petal cloner and then drop that sucker in there and bump up the count. Something is up. How can I do this? Because you can see it's only cloning on the first iteration. I think what I ended up doing is cloning it onto the Spline cloner, which I had on just instances. Because if you use render instances, then it isn't going to be able to clone things on them. So I just did the Spline cloner for that, which works, but it's not directly on the petals, which is a bummer. And yeah, that's just, it's just a bummer. If we baked out the animation from the petals that are being cloned, like into, an Alembic or something, we could then use it in this with the cloner. But yeah, the way it is right now, I don't know if we can keep it procedural. which is a bummer. So if anyone knows, a way to do that, just, again, let me know, let everybody know, and we can all have cool flower droplets together. So that is everything, I believe. Except, where did my... okay. Something weird happened with that. All right. Back in business there. And okay, cloner 1. This is our thing, and we need the most spline cloner here. Okay, there we go. All is good. We'll drop the droplets material on those. Throw those in a null. Call it droplets. Throw that in there. Make that a nice water material. And boom, we're cooking with grease now. Okay. So now, lighting stuff. We could use a sun and sky rig. That could be cool. Natural lighting for our flower. Ooh, looks good. That looks quite good. And then with the sun and sky, you want to just, play with the sun angles. Something like that. Very nice, very nice. And then could turn off the background. And then let's throw in well, I already have a dome light, so throw on the dome light, but let's change the color to something that is more fun. Like something like that. We can turn down the exposure from that one if we want to. Can also, if you want, you can add a graph and do a specific shader for your light. Grab a C4D shader, plug that into the general dome map, and go into shader, probably gradient, and play around with something in here. What if we want circular? Let's try that. But we want like a purple and like a blue. So get something like that, and you can see there's kind of a nice little color variation in the background there. Yeah, that's looking pretty cool. And then if we I dare throw back in the hair, because now there's no I took away the dynamics, I took away the collider, so it should be a little easier on the program to run. But it will look weird. So let's go into the hair tools and grab our brush. Turn down the strength quite a bit and turn down the radius as well. We're gonna need some strength, but we just don't want so much, you know. All right, let's just mess it up, you know, just a little so it doesn't look so weirdly straight. Okay. That is all good. And then let's try just 200,000. Bada bing. See what we get. All right. It's looking cool. Probably going to want to change the color of these leaves to something a little bit more otherworldly. And yeah, you know, when this is not fully bloomed, those droplets look a little bit janky. So let's turn those off for right now. So yeah, I mean, I think this looks like a really cool alien looking flower. Can maybe reduce the intensity of the sky a little bit, but I think it's looking really, you know, really cool with the leaves and the stem and the petals, and you can maybe kind of make out some of those lines from our bump map working their way in there. And we should be able to scrub pretty good, I hope. Fingers crossed. Yeah. There we go. Looking good. So let's let that play. We can see we have all our procedural animation just doing its thing. Got our pollen coming out. Our stem is moving. Our leaves are moving. We have the droplets moving along with the leaves. Everything looks great. So yeah, I think that is everything I wanted to cover in this tutorial. I know it's a really long one and I went slowly through it, but I think there's a lot of tips and, you know, something to be said for taking your time with things every now and again. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Hop in Discord. It's pretty lonely in there right now, but feel free to join me anytime. And yeah, I think you know, we went over a lot of techniques and, you know, kind of layers of putting this all together, and you can continue to add layers and layers on top of this kind of thing, which is the fun of it, right? You can, you know, potentially add more procedural animation to the leaves or petals or the innermost parts, or just adding layers to the flower itself, you know, an outer layer of really large petals, like, you know, only like one layer of like 4 petals outside, and then a layer of medium size, then smaller, and then just, you know, just layering and continuing to add on and experiment with things. You'll end up with all kinds of stuff, and I'll provide this I'll provide this C4D file that I've created here, and it should be pretty well organized to look through, and I really had fun making this one, and I've got a fun next topic coming up. So if you're interested in the world of feathers, that will be the next topic that I cover. So stay tuned, and I'm thinking I'll cover that in CINEMA4D and Houdini. So pick your poison, All right. Well, thanks for making it this far if you did. And look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye. All right, I promise this is the last part of this this epically long tutorial. I forgot the last thing that I wanted to show was how you can even use simulated dynamics on your flower if you want. I know we covered dynamics with the at the most spline level, and then on our petals with the displacer. But if you want to simulate, you can do that as well. So let's just take a look at that really quick. So on our cloner with our petals, we're gonna add you could do cloth or soft body. Let's see what soft body looks like. Okay, so let's make sure gravity's off. Increase the substeps a little bit. So let's just see what we get right away with no real changes other than that. Okay. So you can see things are flying away, all of them. And let's see here. Okay. So if we leave this on render instance, I believe that it's not going to consider all of the elements individually. So we're going to have issues with our simulation in terms of intersections and things like that. So let's see if we can fix that. What we can do is use the mix animation control, and remember we created that vertex map earlier for the inner and outer sections of the petals. I just cloned one of those and made it closer in towards the center so that the closest parts to the center will not be affected by the simulation. So what we'll do is we'll go into our mix animation with pins and then add our map in. And you can change the scale and the influence of that, and we can see how that changes the way it looks. So obviously now it is following the motion a lot more reliably, and let's turn down the influence even more. Okay. So if we use cloth, we get a little bit better of a result, I think, in terms of just the look and the collision behavior. We're still getting some collisions, it looks like, or intersections, I mean, but overall it looks much more natural. And I think this is a layer you can add on top of the other dynamics that we talked about previously. And, if you want to do something more specific or complicated with simulations, just know that you can add that on top, or you could build your flower, bake it out, and not have any animation on it, and then throw that into the simulation afterwards as well. So there's all kinds of options of things you can do. We can add the balloon inflation as well. Have some balloon flowers. Let's really push these suckers. Yeah, so I mean, there's all kinds of fun, wacky things you can do. One issue is that we can see the dynamics while they're playing, but they go away from the visualization on the viewport right when we press pause. This I don't know if I figured out how to make that work properly in the viewport. I would say just, if you do get something that you like, just cache it out or bake it out, and then you'll have it. I know it's, again, not the best way, but if we want to keep things kind of procedural, that is the way that we have to do things. You just, keep things procedural, bake out what you need to bake out, and then, go to the next steps from there in terms of simulation or things like that. But yeah, I just wanted to throw this little add-on at the end to show you that, you can, create these things and then throw them into the simulation toolkit as well, and achieve some cool results. Let's just throw a cube in. Let's see how this responds to colliders. We'll see. Well, it responds okay. It looks like, I think there's some wacky behavior here with the simulations, because I think they're being considered in chunks rather than individually, like let me turn this off. I think they're being considered as one piece rather than each individual pedal. And I don't know how we can get around that, because we would probably need to have instance on, but if we click that on, then we lose all our radial cloning. So there's some issue here, and I'm not sure exactly how we can fix this. I think I tried to do something with the putting this into a fracture, but it didn't, obviously didn't work. Didn't work. So because if we try to do any of like the normal things you would try, like putting it in a connect object or fracture, it breaks what we have set up. So if I figure it out, I'll let you know. But just a quick note on on using simulation after the fact. But